This is Lori Rubinson, Chief Integration Officer of Lippe Taylor here at the Brand Being Meetup Gathering here tonight, and I am chatting 5 minutes with
Mikio Fujitsuka, Head of Sales and Marketing, Specialty Beauty at J&J.
All right. Mikio was lovely enough to be one of our panelists tonight on what was a fantastic panel talking about brand being. We were just talking about companies like Procter & Gamble
Right.
and big companies.
Sure.
And so how do big companies like that change with the times and keep up with some of these smaller brands that maybe have, find the passion that are in some of these smaller brands?
Yeah, it's so interesting, the senior management always identifies small brands that became big. Like right now, example is like a drunk elephant in the beauty category.
Yep.
And they also why can't we find the brand or make a brand like that start from small, nimble, and then become big? They're missing the entire point, because the one successful brand behind that, there are thousands of entrepreneurs who tried, and we don't talk about that 9,999 failure. We don't talk about the one successful one. The point is that we have to make sure we make multiple bets if you want to play like that. And is our structure designed to do it? No, currently not. So that's the one question. And second thing, from the large brand perspective, we almost have to think ourselves for brand erosion by those smaller pioneer brands are necessary evil that would happen. So you have to identify almost like a flanker brand to fight for it. So the example for J&J will be, the Johnson is the biggest baby brand that we have, but we also have Aveeno Baby, and Aveeno Baby is actually more than double-digit growing year on year, and that's because it's playing the same area as all the other small startup. And from our J&J perspective, you know what? We rather want to lose to Aveeno than other companies, because it's still within J&J. So that approach is one way for large brands to solve. But
within the company, is there something to people wanting to work on? Is it more popular to work on something like an Aveeno Baby that almost feels like a startup as opposed to the bigger brands, or is that not the case?
I think it depends. I think for J&J, historically, we would like to recruit the talents that are willing to work for a variety of different categories and sizes. But I think in a common theme right now, I think people, junior marketers, especially people who just started or been here J&J as a marketers for a few years, I think they are already aware that this pyramid is already broken. This used to be ABM, facility brand managers, the group directors and senior directors and vice president. That route is completely broken. Just like probably 10 years ago, some of the young junior editors realized that this publication industries that thing is already gone, and they went ahead and started their own in the digital side, and now they became the big shots. So I think smart young junior marketers are just go ahead and start leaving the company and start their own. I mean, the entry barrier is so low. As even today's presentation, they talked about, it's relatively easier to get a right cash from the right private equity partner or other investors. So I think that's the situation that is. And I think the middle management, including my peer group, are the one that we're trying to manage the fact that we've already invested so many years. And let's see if that runs out before we get to retirement, or some people just be honest about it. You know what, this game is over. I have to think differently. And then obviously the senior leaders, they're really hoping that they get to be in a retirement zone before before this tidal wave will come and eat them. So I think that's the situation of this entire industry is. And I'm not talking about the J&J specific. I think the consumer business specifically, I think, seeing the same thing more or less, in my mind.
One of the things I was struck by on the panel was, I mentioned your comment that thinking of brands, and if you were a brand, what lunch table are you sitting at and which lunch table are you not? And so how did you come up with a philosophy or a mindset like that? What influences that thought process?
Well, the movie Mean Girls were obviously one thing to think about, but when I grew up in Japan, one of the scenes that is so strange to me as a Japanese person is in many Hollywood films, this transfer students in the United States in the first day looking for a place to sit. That's just a weird moment, because I don't see that, but living in the US, it's apparently clear that it's such a big deal, and it's actually there even at the brand level. And if you want to build your equity of what the brand is about, you really have to be careful for where you sit, because the moment you sit in the wrong table, you might completely lose the opportunity to sit on another table. Not because you don't want to, because that table will never let you in if you sat in the other table. And the benefit of a master brand or umbrella brand like J&J, I mean the Band-Aid, is that you don't have to sit on just one table. You have to think about for what combination of the table that you can sit at the same time. So my choice of working with a fashion segment, well, it's just the right thing to do. It was a missing piece. It was apparently clear. We are already giant in a different segments of equity perspective. Obviously, mom, father, son, or daughter, that parenting connections kind of table. Like those places, we've already covered. But we need to stretch our brand and stretch our equity in the much right places to be relevant. That was one of the right places to set.
Yeah,
so.
When you talk about stretching the equity, I think of the concept of brand elasticity, which is always, as brand marketers, what we think about is where will the consumer give you permission to stretch your brand, and at what point is it too much that you dilute your equity and you mean nothing? Right.
I think it might be depending on the category too, but because the benefit of, in the case for Bandaids, for example, it's synonymous to category itself. So we didn't have to worry too much about losing our control by picking it. It's rather, I was questioning that we are staying too long in the same place for a long time, and we're completely missing the situation that consumers already acting on it. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, that there are bandages like Hello Kitty decorated bandages that are more consumed by adults than the kids, and we didn't think about for adult opportunity whatsoever.
Yeah, personally, I have some New York Mets Band-Aids that, in other words, I like sports team themes and things like that, or any of those sort of things. So it's a fun thing. I think adults do like. Yeah. They like fun Band-Aids too.
Right. I mean, it's the association. Right?
Yes, the association,
Right.
And having that flexibility.
Yeah.
That's our time. 5 good minutes with Mikio, and thanks so much for being here at the Brand Summit, the Brand Being Summit.
Absolutely.